Welcome to A Flash of Beauty, the podcast, an audio experience dedicated to the further exploration of Bigfoot and the people Bigfoot has revealed itself to. What started as a documentary of personal narrative encounter stories and expert testimony has now shifted into a deeper inquiry into the forever changed lives of those that have witnessed firsthand this hidden truth. My name is Tobe Johnson, co-producer of Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed. Join me along with the crew and creators of this doc, Director Brett Eichenberger, producer Jill Remensnyder, and cinematographer Michael Ferry, as we go back into the trees to sit down once again with each guest in search of the truth, no matter how strange. Here we are again. We're back. I'm Tobe Johnson, as I said, and with me again is cinematographer Michael Ferry, producer Jill Remensnyder, and our director Brett Eichenberger, fresh back from a nightmare on a airline. Can we say the airline at all? Is it American Airlines?
Yeah, they are not a sponsor of this podcast tonight.
You're lucky to be with us here.
I would highly recommend you choose other airlines. They suck. But we will give a glowing review to Alaska Airlines. They're the best.
That's the way I will be.
If you live east of the Rockies, they do fly east of the Rockies, but not as much as they do on the West Coast. Anyways, this is your captain speaking. Please put your tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked position and prepare for a crash landing.
You guys were in Vegas. You stayed there. For some people, that sounds like a dream vacation overnight, but in your case, you got landlocked there. Your luggage took off north somewhere, and you had the mind, I think you had the wherewithal to chip it. Did you have an air tag ready to go?
I had an air tag, yeah. So I wanted to see where it was this morning, and I tracked it over Alturas, California, which is prime Bigfoot country. If you don't know where Alturas, California is, it is in extreme northeastern California, near Lassen Peak, the famous Lassen area, kind of not too far from Susanville. And also what is out there, and I've actually been out there a couple of times, is the Allen Disk Array that belongs to SETI. The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence is in that area up in Hat Creek, the Hat Creek Observatory, which I highly recommend if you are in the Hat Creek area to go and check out. They have a gift shop. You can get a mug and a pencil, and you can help them search for aliens. It's pretty sweet.
Okay, Hat Creek.
I went off.
Jill, Mike, how are you guys doing?
Well, I was with Brett, so I'm still recovering from that whole travel nightmare. But just to add to that, just to really it wasn't just that we got stuck in Vegas. It was the fact that we were in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we'd been filming morning and afternoon in a very hot, humid conditions in a machine shop, basically. It was dirty. So we were pretty grimy and gross by the time we were at the airport. And so it was living in those clothes and not having... Yeah, it was rough. Yeah.
And I also got to say too that Las Vegas, Nevada is the polar opposite. If there was ever a polar opposite of the ideal Bigfoot environment, it's Las Vegas, Nevada. Like, couldn't be more different. Couldn't be more opposite. And the interesting thing is that there is probably just as much weirdness happening in Las Vegas as there is in a Bigfoot environment. So
in plain sight too.
In plain sight. Yeah.
Weirdness and basketball right now. And me and Brett are huge basketball fans, and summer league is going on. I can't believe you didn't stay down there for another day.
I know.
Mike, no.
There's a huge game on Sunday. It's Scoot versus Wembanyama.
Yeah. I did see a lot of Bigfoot candidates. I did see a lot of dudes that were like 7 feet tall. So there's that.
Actually, Mel Scahan, a Flash of Beauty, told me that him and his wife had an incredible encounter northeast of Nevada. on the Utah border.
Really?
And it was an incredible back and forth, tent touching, similar to what was described with Larry Turner. Yeah, so there is some, what do they call the Sasquatch in the desert out there? Like they have a name.
Sand Squatch?
I think it's Sandman. I think it might be I mean, that's good, right? The Sandman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool country, man. I recommend everybody once in their life drive through the middle of Nevada. It's the best stargazing anywhere almost in the world. It's incredible.
Can we mention anything about that area yet as far as anything coming up, or is it too soon in September? Can we mention that later?
We're gonna say right now that the world premiere of A Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot is occurring at Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah.
Official world premiere.
The official world premiere.
And so who goes to this said Phenomicon? Is it people no one's ever heard of, or what kind of people show up?
Oh man. If you're not there, then you're not serious about the paranormal. No, I'm kidding. I'm sort of kidding. But this show is not endorsed by them. I'll also say that. But Jill and I have been attending the last couple of years. And if you're a fan of Skinwalker Ranch, I highly recommend it. The Blind Frog Ranch folks are going to be there this year. Apparently, I've heard rumors that show is coming back. If you're a fan of that show will be coming back. And so therefore they're bringing back Dwayne and some of the cast members of that show. So they'll be there, but you can kind of get up close and personal with, folks like Russ Accord. So if you're a Bigfoot fan, Dr. Meldrum's been there in the past. He's not going to be there this year. But Russ Accord and
all the expedition Bigfoot.
Yeah, all the expedition people.
Cast.
Is there going to be anybody taking a nap there? Is there perhaps a George Knapp?
George Knapp is going to be there, of course.
I mean, but that's a huge get. If you haven't hung with the master of nighttime radio, and you haven't been connected with George, in particular his investigative journalism out in Nevada, the original mobster investigator turned UFO journalist, really. I can't wait to possibly pick his brain about Angel and the ETs on the excavator. There's some incredible conversations. There's a chance to have breakfast with more than us there at Phenomicon, so we hope to see you there. There's morning chats with the likes of the whole crazy crew of Kit and Caboodle of Skinwalker Ranch. And so we hope to see you out in Phenomicon in September for the world premiere of A Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot. I want to interject here. We had a death, so I want to say some prayers and thoughts and prayers to the family of the Ackleys, also known as Sarah Claudia Ackley in particular, who is she's a pretty well-known Bigfoot witness, I believe, out of Northern California. And when I interviewed her back when I did Strange Brow Radio, she wanted to go by codename Sarah. And so I put a link up on the Facebook channel. You can go find an old episode titled Sarah, They Come Inside on Strange Brow Radio. But anyway, thoughts and prayers to the Ackley family. And, she's a lot like the witnesses that we have in part 1 and part 2. Started off, I believe, with her and her daughter seeing one in a park in California or near a park, and then entering into the stranger and stranger stuff as it progressed. So a shock to the system.
Yeah, and just another footnote to that, Ed Brown was the MC of Phenomicon, and that's Claudia's significant other. I think they were boyfriend, girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the entire relationship there, but they're important in each other's lives, and so thoughts to Ed.
Yeah, Ed Brown. I'm glad you said his name because I was trying to find out who that was, but I think I remember that now. And Ed's been in this too for a while, so my condolences, Ed, and everybody involved with that. We have a doozy of an episode for you today. Our guest is JR, Jeff Rone, the postman, And man, we talk about it all here. We get into a little bit of everything. We get into discussions of twin flames and 10-foot shadows and DNA. We even talk about God. I think Ted Nugent was brought up briefly by me. So if you want to go all the way around the world with us, no taboo topics here at A Flash of Beauty, the podcast. But what do you guys think of our talk with Jeff?
Did we ever find out why the postman always rings twice, or did we
you know, I tried that joke with Jeff, and I think he's all wrung out. he's been plagued with that as much as I've been plagued with Toby-Wan Kenobi, or you know, all the code names. But go ahead. Yeah, what do you guys think of the episode?
Amazing.
I think we broke new ground. I did. I think this was a really good episode. I think people are going to love it. I think there's definitely some subject matter we have not really gotten into and talked about, but we needed to. And I think there's still a little something for everyone here.
It was interesting to me because his interview in the documentary was rather short. And it was just awesome to really dive into his experience and hear a little bit more about it. And I didn't realize how many paranormal experiences he'd had. You know, Jill talks about talking to him after the interview, and I'm probably packing up gear, and they're talking about all these crazy experiences. And so it was fun to get into that.
Look, I'll be honest. When I in the interview, when I asked him to share some of the other things he's seen, what he didn't bring up, and we'll save this for another show or maybe another documentary, who knows? We're talking about Dogman, and I was hoping that would come up. It did not. We'll put a pin in that one. Circle back later.
Yeah.
This is.
I've been an advocate for Dogman, but no one will come to my aid.
I will come to your aid on that someday, Jill. In some way, I'll come with a collar and a leash, and I will go there with you. I wish I could say more, but I'll save this for a future episode. I'll tease it out. There's stuff happening in Agnew, Port Angeles area of the Dogman variety. And let's just say that it's really close to home. And I just found that out about 6 hours ago. So this move I'm making, we're going to see what happens here. Probably nothing, but there's stuff outside my door here that I think is all going to add up to a property that was meant to be. So anyway, I'll tease that out. Let's get to our interview with superstar postman. By the time you hear this episode, he'll be less than a month out from retiring. So a retirement episode here for our guest, A Flash of Beauty, Jeff Rone. With us here now is guest and I guess feature star of A Flash of Beauty. This is postman Jeff Rone. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, it's good to hear your voice again. And what I'll tell the audience right out of the gate is that it's a small community. And once in a while, you're going to hear some old friends chime in here that people didn't necessarily know that Jeff and I had a little Bigfoot history together. But, Jeff has had me out at his place, which is a hot spot. In this case, it was out near the Lewis River in Yakult, which is an interesting area if anyone ever gets a chance. I think best known for that area not only as a hot spot, Jeff, you would agree, for yourself, but including the likes of Wes Germer of Sasquatch Chronicles, where they had their sighting on the Lewis River as well. So good to have you here with us. And of course, again, there's Brett, Jill, and Mike with us here. But hey, we all want to know. We saw your footage in A Flash of Beauty. It's kind of an on-the-spot, grab your phone moment where you're having a fresh sighting in northern Idaho, circa 2021, summertime footage. Also rocking my old Oregon Sasquatch Symposium t-shirt. I appreciate the plug. But get into what we see there in the river, because as you're talking about this fresh sighting that's happening, then you pan over to the left, and you have some incredible footage of what appears to be, after a brief sighting, of a stick structure on the rocks. But tell people a little bit about that, and then get into how you got into this whole thing called Bigfooting.
Yeah. Well, Well, the stick structure was not to the left. It was before we got to the actual spot that Jim, or Elk, we call him, his spot that we go Bigfoot at. It was before he got there, but that was a pretty cool, weird thing, the stick structure anyway. But so it wasn't anywhere near where I had the sighting. But so anyway, it was during the heat wave of July. Well, it was the end of June. I went to Orofino, Idaho. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, to visit Jim, and then we took off from there and went up to his Bigfooting spot. And it was 118 degrees, and we got up there, and the horse flies were biting us all over the place, and I probably killed 100 of them with my hat, my baseball cap. And then the next morning we got up, and about 6 o'clock in the morning, and made some coffee, and Jim looked at me and said, "Hey, do you want to get the hell out of here?" I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't going to work." And he says, "I tell you what, I'll take you these back roads up through Superior, Montana, and we'll go through Missoula, and I'll show you these back roads, and we'll come back to Orofino." I'm like, "That sounds like a fun day trip to me." And so we packed up camp. Didn't take long, and it was about 7:30 in the morning. We took off from camp, and I took my iPhone out, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to video along the creek, and I bet I'm going to get a Bigfoot." And I did that for like 5 seconds. I said, "No, I'm not trying to get evidence. I don't want to do this." And then I told Jim, I said, "You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we got down the road half a mile and there'd be a family Bigfoot standing there looking at us." Well, 0.2 of a mile down the road, I'm looking in the creek, and I see this humongous black thing bending over in the creek like it's getting water or picking something out of the creek. And I said, "Jim, stop. There's a huge effing," well, first I said moose, and I go, "I don't mean moose. I mean Bigfoot." And he stopped, backed up. He goes, "Oh, I see it too." And so I probably saw it maybe a total of 10 seconds, and he probably saw it a total of 5 seconds. And while we both watch it, it looked like it was like, "Oh, I got caught," and it stood up and looked toward us. It was a big black figure. I couldn't see the details. I couldn't see, facial or anything, but I could see the body. It was dark black. It was just humongous. The shoulders were so big, and it looked up at us and went like, "Uh-oh," and exit stage right, just gone in a flash. Therefore, a flash of beauty, which wasn't, why they named that documentary that. But it was gone. So I hopped out right away. I hopped out of the truck because I wanted to document my feelings and what I saw immediately, just to preserve it. So there's how the footage came about.
Okay. Yeah. And it's amazing footage. And again, you're on motorcycle, you're on comms through like your helmets. Is that right? Or what do you, I know you like riding bikes.
Oh no, we're in Jim's Toyota pickup.
Okay. I thought you were like leading a caravan on your bikes.
No.
Okay.
And I'm in the passenger seat, but we got the windows down, and I'm like leaning over, kind of looking out the window on his side, and it was on the driver's side where I saw it. But even if I would have had a video or even a better camera, and sitting in the pickup truck bed with a camera, aiming it on the creek, and recorded it and put it out there, people would go like, "Yeah, whatever, that's a blob." You just can't. You can't go looking for evidence like that. It's just never going to turn out. And I didn't care. I saw what I saw. Jim saw it, and it was real, and it was amazing. And so then we took these roads up to Superior, Montana, and that's when I first got cell service, and I of course texted my daughter and my son and a couple of close friends, and then I called Joe Bealart, and I told him what I saw, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you, man!" And then about 2 days later, he emailed me and said, "Hey, there's some friend, a documentary team, Jill and Brett, that interviewed me, and I told them about you, and that's how they got a hold of me."
Well, pause.
And,
So you know Joe Bealart, one of the previous guests from Flash of Beauty. We interviewed Joe.
yeah,
He's the author of Oregon Bigfoot Highway.
yeah.
How do you know him again?
Joe and I met. I'm his mailman at the moment,
Here's
and
Mailman. Okay, I love it.
yeah, I delivered mail, and I actually knew him. I didn't know he was in the Bigfoot until I did some research on the internet way back in the day, and his name came up, and I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. And anyway, so I ended up talking to him at the mailbox, and we started chatting, and we went out in the woods a couple times together, and then I had some experiences in the woods at a place I called Camp Broken Arrow out past Bagby Hot Springs down the Clackamas River, and then I won't say the exact location, but anyway, and so he wrote a book, like you said, called the Bigfoot Highway, whatever. Anyway, so I'm in chapter 52, and you know what Area 51 is, right? So
Oh, yeah.
he put me in chapter 52, which was like another area of high weirdness, Bigfoot related stuff. Anyway, so I wrote a little bit for his book and that of some experiences we had as far as some strange stuff that happened with some of the guys that were camping with us, and it's in the book. It's kind of hard to go into detail right now, but anyway, so yeah, so that's how Joe and I met, and so we chit chat every once in a while at the mailbox, and we're still, we're pretty good friends.
Yeah, I grabbed a copy of the book when you said that, so I'm gonna have to dog ear it so I can read that, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that you were in the book. So.
Oh yeah, and the story that happened, we had a friend that was back in the day. I met a lot of people on Autumn Williams' website, OregonBigfoot.com. That's how pretty much Tobe and I met. And she brought a lot of people together, and I organized an outing, and I took a guy named Tom out there, and he was in really poor health. And Jim, my buddy from Idaho, he was with me, and a bunch of us met at my spot out past Bagby Hot Springs. And I said, Jim, Tom looks like he's in really bad health. I think we're going to have to carry him out here in the back of your pickup. He looks like he's ready to die. Well, the 2 nights, it was either 2 or 3 nights, he experienced like healing in his tent. There was vibrations and light and a presence of something in his tent. And a gal named Sue was with him in the tent looking after him. And we heard these weird things all night long. And the next morning, when Tom finally came out of the tent, I said, Tom, what were you and Sue doing walking around the camp last night? Because we heard talking, and it was Tom and Sue's voices. We couldn't make out what they were saying, but you could tell there was some kind of concern in the tone. And I woke Jim up, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And he heard the same thing, and we just went back to sleep. Well, anyway, the next morning, I asked Tom, what were you guys doing walking around like at 3 o'clock in the morning? He goes, I wasn't walking around. This is the first time I've been out of my tent since last night. And he said, you wouldn't believe what happened. So a couple hours later, we're all sitting around. He said, hey, there was this light outside the tent, a vibration in my chest, and there was like healing down in my heart. And the guy the next day was walking around without his walker, and he looked like he was like 20 years younger. And it happened again the second night, and he looked like he was another 10 years younger. And it was like there was some healing stuff going on those 2 nights. And I don't know if it was Bigfoot related, but it was certainly, there was something going on in those woods. And I think that's what's in the book that you were just holding up. And that's just only part of the crazy stuff that I've experienced out in the woods. I've had more of that kind of experience than I've had like sightings. But I'm telling you, man, it really happened. And the guy looked like he was on his deathbed, and then he looked like he was 30 years younger after 2 nights. Crazy stuff.
Wow, that's super interesting, Jeff. And I had not heard that story from you, and I don't think I'd heard that story from Joe Beelard either.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a bridge to our sequel, Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot, where we get into some of this kind of stuff. Wow, yeah, that's very cool. And just to go back just a half a step too, I just wanted to say that when we were interviewing Joe at his house, he interrupted the interview about halfway through and was like, "Hey, I just got an email or a call from a guy who just had a sighting 2 days ago," and we flipped out. I flipped out. I was like, "Joe, whatever you got to do, call him right now." Talk to him. We've got to interview this guy. We have to interview this guy to get these fresh feelings. We literally we were so excited to get that news from Joe. We were just keeping our fingers crossed that you were going to be willing to talk to us about it, because it's just so hard to get those fresh feelings.
Yeah. And that's why I just grabbed my phone and aimed it at the creek and described what I just saw, just for prosperity. I wanted to record it for, I don't want to, and every time I talk about it, I'm pretty sure I say the same thing, and it's just etched in my mind. It's permanent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a good point to make to everybody out there. If you're, if you can't get a photograph or video of a Bigfoot, which is almost next to impossible because they move so doggone fast, get the raw emotions, because that's so hard to fake. You're not going to be able to fake that kind of stuff. People are going to be able to hear the cracking in your voice. They're going to be able to see it in the excitement. You know what I mean? And that's what we got from you and in your video. That was a really cool piece to be able to put into our movie.
Yeah. The other weird thing is, like, Jim and I have had. We can go into paranormal stuff, and I remember I've told you before I was going to give you a call and tell you about more of my paranormal stuff that you might want to use on your next show or movie. And I haven't called you to tell you about it because it's so far out there that you wouldn't believe me. But not, I'm sure you would believe me, but it's just so weird. But Jim, the guy I was with in Idaho, he and I have experienced so many things together in the same tent. And the next day, like, went over what we saw or heard or whatever, and we're like 99%, in agreement of what happened. So it was funny after we saw the Bigfoot, 2 years ago, in the creek in Idaho. So we finally end up getting back in his rig, and we're driving like 10 miles an hour down the gravel road, and we just kind of start laughing. I'm like, dude, shouldn't we be like going, oh my God, we just saw a Bigfoot, and we weren't freaking out. We were both like, well, we kind of knew we were going to see one eventually, what's new, it was just so weird. It was like, I don't know. And we just kept like every 20 minutes, like, we just saw a Bigfoot back there. And, we should be like, driving 100 miles an hour down the road, freaking out. But we were just like, dude, it's cool. It's just the weirdest thing. I can't even tell you what it was like.
I mean, when the unusual becomes usual like that, who do you hang out with, Jeff? I mean, at this point, your friend pod is becoming tinier and tinier, because how can you relate to people that can't relate to something like that?
Yeah. kind of like a dating pool. It's like, hi, my name's Jeff. I've been abducted by UFOs. I've, been brain scanned, seen, a couple of Bigfoots and blah, blah, blah. Hey, can I buy you a coffee sometime?
Right.
Yeah.
We need to start Jill, you have to start a dating site or something like that for desperately seeking Sasquatch or like foot fetish or something like that. I don't know what we would call it.
George Norrie is
I was
constantly,
That's
I was
right.
just gonna say
pushing Paradate or whatever.
Paranormal date.
Paranormal date.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the ad for it is terribly amusing.
Yeah.
If you
It's a good
haven't
one.
heard it, go to Coast to Coast and click on the paranormal dating app and listen to the ad. It's worth it.
Jeff, I want you to sign up for this and let us know how it goes.
Oh, that's funny. I've been saying that for like 12 years. I started a dating site like that. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Hey, Mike, you got any burning questions down there? I don't want to leave you out of the mix. You were along for the ride. Did you meet Jeff?
I did. Yeah. Jeff's story was amazing. In my mind, I'm just curious how the exit happened. How did Bigfoot get out of scene so fast? We've heard stories about, dematerializing, running so fast, or gliding. How did that take place? I'm just curious.
Yeah, John. John, so I know you, right?
Mike?
My name's Mike. I was the camera
Mike.
guy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mike. I'm sorry, Mike.
No,
yeah.
no worries.
Yeah, Mike. Well, it was in the creek, and it was probably 150 feet away, and it's in a creek, a very fast running creek with big rocks. And when it looked up and it realized it was noticed, and I could tell from the distance, it was like, oh shit, they saw me. And I saw it maybe posture to its left, so it was going to my right. But it was like the what was it, the old cartoon, exit stage right, in a hurry. It was like gone, just like that. It was a flash. You didn't even see it. You just saw like a swoosh, just gone.
Not like a ton of water going all over the place, and it just kind of comes take it off. It was a one motion kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting.
It was like you blink your eyes, it was gone. I mean, it was just whoosh, gone in a flash of beauty.
But
yeah.
This is Brett. So there was no after effects of it leaving, like disturbances in brush or anything. So did you even get any sort of indication as to what direction it went off in?
It just went to my right, which would be the creek. The creek we were following just started flowing away from the road right there, so it bended around. So it was about 150 feet away from the road at that point, but it dropped down about 10 or 15 feet because all the embankment and everything, and a bunch of brush and stuff. And Jim even went back there like a week later and took a depth finder, or he could measure his hunting tool to measure the distance. And it was like 150 feet where it was, but it was just, there was some brush in the middle of the stream, because the stream had a little island in the middle of it where it was, so the water flowed on both sides. But you couldn't see anything move. It was just gone. And then, there was no evidence of anything. I told Cliff, that, well, I won't talk about that. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay, we can do that.
We'll leave that part of mystery. One more kind of question or point to Jeff is that I think people might be wondering, were you guys like on a highway, or? And I remember you telling us, and we wanted to be kind of covert about the location, per your wishes. But can you kind of describe how out in the wilderness you guys actually were, and what kind of road this was?
Oh yeah, it was well, if you coordinate it, okay. you have to go through Pierce, Idaho to get there. And then at some point, as the crow flies, you're not, more than an hour from Missoula, Montana, but you're up in the panhandle of Idaho. So I don't want to give it away completely, but it's pretty remote. I mean, it's remote. You don't just go for a day drive, normally. And, but there are a lot of people that camp up there and whatnot. But for some reason, 2 years ago, during the heat wave, there weren't a lot of campers because people probably weren't they're like, well, hell, it's too hot. We're not going to go camping. But it was right along this really beautiful creek. And I think we just caught this Bigfoot guy off guard, and he didn't think people were up there. But I would have thought that he knew we were there because, every the 5 or 6 times I was there in the past, we had experiences almost every time. I guess every time but once we had experiences of all kinds of weird fashions. But it's just weird. I think you just caught them off guard. It's just, I always thought the Bigfoot, they know you're there before you got there, and they've got people, there are other guys watching, and they're alerting all their other family members. We caught this guy completely off guard, and it's just the weirdest thing.
You might say that Bigfoot are people too, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, well, I think they are people. I mean, they're a people. I mean, we are a people. They're a people. They have culture. They have language. They have families. They have language and all that stuff. That's how I really believe about them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not some dumb animal running around the woods, for sure.
In part 2, Jeff, we get into the stranger aspects of these stories that you and I have heard
Mm-hmm.
along the way here.
Yeah.
Earlier you
Mm-hmm.
talked about healing. What do you make of these claims as far as them having these puzzling powers, and what do you attribute it to? Because that is out of the realm of people as far as typical people.
Well, I think with humans, there's a bit of a disconnect from God, for one reason or the other. I think we all have the power to heal, if we trust God and all that stuff. And for some reason, I think that we're so removed from our total nature that we were given when we were created. I think the Bigfoot people are still connected to all that, and they live within nature. They don't ruin their environments like we do, and they're live off the land, and they don't necessarily have to build fire or ruin stuff. And I just think that they're more in tune with God, or nature and healing. And I had an experience up in that same camp that I saw the Bigfoot 2 years ago. I had an experience where I had a deep dream where my DNA was being healed or fixed or whatever, but I could see my DNA flowing, and I was in a deep, weird trance, and I feel like something healed my DNA. And that's a whole nother, that could be your next story, Brett. I don't know.
I like it. It's fascinating.
What do you know about your DNA needing to be fixed? Was there something that you noticed as far as you coming off of something or being healed? Was there?
Well, I think it wasn't like a fixing cancer or fixing something like that. I think it was more fixing my brain, fixing my mindset, fixing my point of view, fixing the way I looked at the world. Really, I think it was like a reset or something. It grounded me back to my roots or something.
And this is Mike again, Jeff. So you noticed did you notice a big change in yourself and the way, you know, you walked in the
Yeah,
world and lived in the world and saw things?
yeah, yeah. Actually, maybe not right away, because when you're walking in your own shoes, you don't really see it until you walk away from, I guess, the darkness, and all of a sudden you see the lightness.
Right.
I heard from a lot of people, like Arla Williams, who was in the documentary. I was pretty close with her a few years back, and she had talked about a great awakening that was coming. And I thought, oh, cool, great awakening. We're all going to be growing spiritually every time we get closer to Bigfoot. We're going to learn more and more. Well, I didn't really know what the Great Awakening was up until about 3 years ago, when I realized, the torment of the world that we're going through right now. I'm not going to get into politics. I just think it's good versus evil. There's a lot of people that are waking up to like what's been going on bad in the world, and people are waking up to like it's good versus evil, and there's a lot of people waking up, and we're trying to change the direction of humankind. And I think that DNA thing that I went through kind of shifted my mind and my whole life purpose in another direction. So that's where that's at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way you're describing it, it reminds me of scripture. It reminds me the book of
Mm-hmm.
Genesis, where it talks about there being a return to the pre-flood situation, and Noah, and how
Well,
there were giants in those days. Are you alluding to something akin to that?
well, I'm not alluding to that exactly, but I'm just saying that we got to get back to the ways that we were when we were connected with God, and we were all more spiritual, and human beings were all connected together, and we we have to survive together and stuff. And there's been so many things over the last couple hundred years or thousands of years that are factioning us off and cutting people off, and creating groups, and hate and divisions and stuff, and trying to ruin us and take God out of the equation. And so I'm just saying that I think that we need to come back to God, and as a human race, and somehow I think the Bigfoot people are still connected to that. I could be wrong. Some people say they're evil or satanic, whatever, but I haven't experienced that yet. But all I know is that my journey with the Bigfoot thing has made me more spiritual, connected to God, and changed my views about the whole world, and for the better, I think. And I kind of want to pass the word along, and help people, realize that we're all in this together. If that makes any sense.
This is Brett. Jeff, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
we've been hearing, we've been doing, we've done a couple of screenings of the sequel, and we've heard from a couple of people that they have some concerns about the paranormal aspect of our film, and what it could mean, and
Yeah.
what it could entail. And not to get too deep into that, there certainly is some, in my opinion, some kind of fire and brimstone thinking that kind of goes along with that a little bit, that that there's witchcraft and occultism and stuff that's involved in that. And I don't think that's the case, because we have seen, there certainly is, there's no question in my mind that there is a constant battle being waged against good and evil. That's apparent in our society, and in every pillar of our society. There's a war against good versus evil. But some of the generosity and the kindness and the personalities of the Bigfoot people that we've seen through the interviews have been overwhelming in a lot of ways, especially when you get into the stories of the gifting and whatnot. And then the story that you told about the healing, and that's not the first time, nor will it be the last time that we hear that. So I think that a lot of it just comes down to, people, and this is kind of really the whole point of what we're trying to do with the Flash of Beauty, is just getting people to open their minds to these I don't even want to use the word mystical. I mean, these are the laws of the universe that we don't quite understand yet, and it's naive of us and ignorant of us to think that because we don't understand it, they're evil, and so the sequel to A Flash of Beauty is going to get into that. It's going to get into some of the science of that, and how frequencies and vibrations and spirituality and what can really open our eyes and help affect us.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people who have had encounters of whatever kind and maybe had negative feelings about it, or had a bad effect, or scared the shit out of, I think that's more of a reflection of their soul.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, and fear is around every corner in our society right now. I mean, if you're a parent, you send your kids to school, you worry about violence in schools, which wasn't a thing when we were kids. That wasn't even a thing. It was bullying. That was the thing. You didn't worry about somebody showing up with a gun. And the same is true with any other variety of thing, whether it's and people are hurting other people tremendously with their words, and their intentions. The suicide rate is up because of just negative thoughts and feelings that are projected against other people. So the negativity and to me, some of that is spiritualism, how other people can really infect another person's mind through simple ideas and thoughts and things and stuff like that. And that's just, it's not the way that nature intended it to be.
No, you're right. And I think a lot of these people, they've lost their connection with God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. I call it God. And I'm just going to say it, Jesus Christ. And once you lose that connection, then all these bad things can happen to you. And I'm not saying that, a good Christian that's got a good relationship with Jesus Christ is going to have bad things happen to him. But I really think that's at the heart and soul of what's going on right now in this world. It's good versus evil. It's Satan versus God right now, and there's a battle going on, man. I got to tell you, it really is. But I didn't know if you wanted to go down that road, but there's and if you're the reflection that people get from these Bigfoot experiences when it's bad, it's usually shoot first, ask questions later kind of people. You just listen to Sasquatch Chronicles. Every guy that he interviews, well, I was out there with my, big old gun and I was going to kill Bigfoot, and all of a sudden I got scared and it scared me. I mean, think about it. It's good versus evil. It's where your mind's at, where your heart and soul's at, man. We all got to start loving each other.
It's true. It's so true. It's so true. And I want to be fair to the listening audience out there that is of diverse religious and spiritual beliefs too, and we wanted to portray that in both films. And we feature Farouk Muhammad, who is a Muslim, and and he talks about what he's read in the Quran and what, some of the things that God says, Allah says in the Quran about nature and spirits, and how Allah is the Lord of the worlds. And in this case, Farouk calls him God. But but the main point is that love is really what we all need here. And we all need to be loving the environment in which these individuals live in. We need to love the environment for ourselves, for them. We need to love each other, regardless of what your belief system is. I mean, I think that's something that we can all agree on, is that love rules all. And that really helps to get us back to that spiritual place. Love thy brother.
Yeah. You guys are just doing a full love fest here. This is Tobe. I'm gonna smack you both Bigfoot. In the. You've got a smart ass on the phone here, just about ready to die with all the love talk. But in a way, I mean, I understand what you're saying too, as far as coming together here. We live in such a weird, polarizing time now, to where the Muslim and the Christian can both agree on the concept of good and evil and say, hey, this is different. We all notice this now. We're all
Mm-hmm.
noticing this, and the friends that we have are
Mm-hmm.
so diverse and unique that the Ted Nugents of the world are aligning with the JFKs of the world. And so, what time in history would you ever see that? But now, and of course, there's no taboo topics on this podcast at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think Sasquatch gets into politics. They're more. Jeff, what do you think? I mean, one thing I've
Oh,
learned is that Sasquatch seems to be interested in the intent of the visitor.
yeah.
They're
Right.
constantly looking at the intent.
Right. It's your intent, your heart, your soul. The politics is the outlying part. You can, whatever politics you're into is separate from, love and stuff. And I've always thought that we are all connected by there's a God. We are created. We are all points of light, not to sound like George Bush, but we are all points of light, and we're all connected to the bright light that brought us here. And once we realize that we're all points of light and we're all connected, come on, what's the old song? Come on, everybody, let's get together, love right now, whatever, we're all connected, man. We're not separate. Skin color and religion and all that stuff is a bunch of bullshit. We're all human beings. We're all created by the same creator. And once we get on board with that, then we can probably get somewhere.
Jill?
Yes, sorry, I was busy working on my dating profile for Paranormal. Sorry, just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I'm not
no.
on there yet, but I will tonight. Yeah, just kidding.
Okay. Jeff, so one thing I remember is after we wrapped your interview, you shared with me some of the other things you've encountered in the woods. Would you care to share some of those stories of other things you've seen?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was the brain scanning I mentioned earlier, where I felt like I was being brain scanned and I could see my DNA, and I woke up and I saw a Bigfoot in my tent. And then there was, I think the night before that, I saw all these flashing lights everywhere, like the cops showed up at the campsite. And I woke up and I looked out the front of the tent and I woke Jim up and I said, Jim, wake up. Our fire started up by itself. And he said, oh, it did. And we had this campfire that we doused out with, a 5-gallon bucket of water the night before. And all of a sudden we've got these twin flames that are side by side, going from, and I call them dancing flames, like one of those balloon blow up features that are air's being blown through them, where they fly up and they, flutter around. Anyway, it was side by side fires going from like 5 feet to 10 or 12 feet side by side, two different flames, in the middle of the night, out of nowhere, woke me up because of the brightness. And there were two huge, like at least 10-foot tall black figures walking around those flames for like 20 minutes. And Jim saw it, I saw it. And then at one point, the flames completely diminished, went out, and both of us went back to sleep instantly.
Wow. I got a question for you, Jeff. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and I can't wait for you to see the sequel, because we've got some crazy stuff in it. But
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah.
That's a very interesting story. So this is something that's kind of bothered me since we really started getting into this, going all the way back to 2020 when we started the first film. Why is it? I mean, they're obviously aware that there's humans present. So a lot of this seems like it's a show. Like it's like, hey guys, check this out, or whatever. You know, and what's his face, Mike in sorry guys, help me out. Mike in Canada, in Ontario, Canada, has aports happen all the time. You know, marbles come out of thin air. This will happen to people, guests.
Mhm.
You know, I know the guy that wrote and directed Letters from a Big Man. He was
Yeah.
up there, and he was seeing these things just kind of, you know, peer out of thin air, so on and so forth. I mean, so many people have got these stories of these fantastical things happening right in front of their very eyes, including these two men that we
Yeah.
interviewed in the sequel. What's going on? What's your theory here? What are they trying to show us or convince us of?
Well, I don't know. I know when I saw the dancing flames and the brain scanning thing, I think they were just maybe I was ready to hear the message or get the message, or I'm not saying I was chosen, but I think I was an audience for them, to where they're like, hey, we're going to show you this event. And I was just lucky to be there at the time or whatever, and experienced it. And I don't really know what to make of it, but to tell people about it, and they can make of it what they want. But it's been profound for me in my life and my spiritual growth. And I don't know, man. I really can't. There's really no answer. I think the answer lies within each of us. Whatever you take from it is what you're going to get. And I can't wait to get out there again in another month and go to that same spot and see what happens next time.
Mike?
Yeah, you kind of answered my question there, but maybe we can dive into this a little bit more. But like, you know, I was just wondering, you know, why I would love to see something. I would love to be open enough to see something myself. I haven't yet. But what makes you and you know, a myriad of other people that we've interviewed, what are the characteristics that make you chosen to see this stuff?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's no real answer to that, but I know that I've gone out in the woods before. I'm like, I'm going to find a Bigfoot. I'm going to discover this. I'm going to find that, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm going to go out here and run through the woods and grab a camera. And then one time I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to go out to the woods, have a good time, laugh with my friends, bullshit, maybe have a couple beers, and I'll let Bigfoot find me. And ever since I got in that mindset, that's when all kinds of stuff started happening.
I used to have a friend, Jeff, that said, my gas for their hairy ass. And I think that's exactly what he meant.
Yeah.
So it's all about hanging out at the end of the road and keeping an open mind.
I want to add in like a footnote here too. Just because I know, in all fairness, I know there's a lot of folks out there that are listening to this podcast that are probably pretty firmly planted in the flesh and blood world. And I just want to say that I totally understand that. I totally agree as to how and why you would have those feelings and stuff. And we do get a lot into the paranormal, and obviously we have a sequel coming out. But I just want to kind of say to people out there, really listen to what folks like Jeff have to say, because when you start listening, don't you know, set it aside. You know, make a note or two, because you're going to start hearing these stories more and more often. And there's something happening right now, I think, in the balance of the universe, or whatever, cult the awakening, whatever. But there are things happening right now in the Bigfoot world, the UFO world, that are cross-pollinating. And there's very similar things that are happening. In fact, we were just in Las Vegas earlier today, and we got a taxi, and we were talking to the guy. We were joking about UFOs and stuff, and I said to the guy, I was like, "What about this alien that was in this backyard?" And he's like, "I don't know much about that." I was telling him, I was like, "Look," I said, "there's a lot of people that are like, oh, this is a hoax and stuff," and I'm like, "No, it's not a hoax." And I think maybe I mentioned this in a couple of episodes on this podcast before, but I said, the reason I don't think it's a hoax is because that 15-year-old kid specifically said that when he looked at the alien, And it was a couple of aliens. He said when he looked at the alien in the craft, or aliens in the craft, they were blurry. And he didn't know how else to say that. And I said to the taxi driver, I said, they were cloaking, just like Bigfoot do. They were using the same methodology, the same vibrational frequency or whatever to try and obscure their identities or obscure the impact of scarring that 15 or 16-year-old kid from seeing something that would scare the crap out of him and potentially cause damage in his brain. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they know that there's people out there that can't handle some of this stuff. So anyways, I'm just saying, I just wanted to go on a rant to say that, you know, for you out there that are very skeptical and whatnot, just keep listening with an open mind, because you're going to hear a lot of similarities from folks that have never met each other.
Yeah. That's a good point, Brett. Yeah.
Well, you know, in the last few moments we have with you, Jeff, as far as people that want to look into this, let's go back to Jeff before he was Jeff the Bigfooter. That's your new nickname, by the way. What would you tell the noob out there that's looking this as far as ways to not waste their time, how to approach this, some missteps you made along the way for them to avoid, and maybe some tips?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to go, deep in the wilderness, and park your rig and hike in 20 miles. You don't have to do that. If you're looking for Bigfoot, if that's what you want to do, all you gotta do is go somewhere woodsy. Doesn't have to be that woodsy. Just go and be yourself and be pure of heart. Maybe say some prayers. And when I had my most amazing Bigfoot experiences, I walked around the area that I was at, and I thank God, and I thank Jesus, and I thank the Bigfoot people for letting me be here. And my heart was wide open, and I just let it come to me. You don't have to go looking for it. Let it come to you. And so I'll just say, when I had those experiences I talked about earlier with the brain scan and the twin flames, and the fires and stuff. The first night I was there, I grabbed a guitar, went up the embankment on the side of camp, grabbed my guitar, and I played "Imagine" by John Lennon and sang it, and I dedicated it to the forest people. And as soon as I got done with the last note, this thing came in my head and said, "Well, that was nice, but let's hear something of your own." And I went, "What?" And so I made up a song, and I dedicated it to the forest people, the Bigfoot people. And I just made up a song, and I made these chords up and stuff. And I was like, I got done. I'm like, okay, done. Walked down back to camp, and joined everybody else. And then that night, the next 3 nights was incredible. It was crazy.
So you serenaded Sasquatch. That might have to be the name of this episode.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember any? You have any? Remember any of the lyrics, perhaps, to sing us out here, Jeff? Please remember some lyrics.
Tobe Johnson. I don't know.
I love
Young Tobe, look at your life. You're a lot like me was. No, I don't know. No, I don't remember any of the words. I knew I forgot them right away. But
okay.
Your heart has to be pure, man. You gotta forgive, and you gotta love, and you gotta open up. And I'm guilty of not doing that every day of my life. But you just gotta get rid of, ask for forgiveness, and just thank God for everything you have, and just make your heart pure, man. And all kinds of good things. And it may not be Bigfoot, but it might be just great things from your neighbor. All of a sudden, your neighbor loves you, and your community is a better place. I mean, that's what it's all about.
And yet, just to make a point here, Jeff, you're very disconnected from tech. Is that true?
No, not really. But I'm off of social media.
Okay.
For like the last 5. But
Okay.
I've got a smartphone, of course, and I
Okay.
but I don't really get involved in a lot of stuff. But I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, maybe that has something to do with it being a little disconnected here. I'm only saying you're very
Yeah.
disconnected because you never had any success logging on with Zoom, but that doesn't mean anything per se. As someone like Brett who
Yeah.
knows tech inside and out, you're different than
Well,
Brett for sure in that category.
yeah, but come out with the woods with me, and we'll just disconnect, and we'll pray, and we'll just like disconnect from everything and just be one with nature, and I guarantee you'll have a good time, whatever happens. So
There you
not
go.
saying you're going to see, but that's what we got to get back to, man. That's what life and people and humans are all about, and we're so caught up in all this other crap. It's hard, man.
It's true. It's true. It's absolutely true,
Yeah.
and it gets worse every day. We're poisoning
Yeah.
our minds,
Mhm.
poisoning our bodies, poisoning our spirits, poisoning
Right.
our environment. We can't escape the poison, and that's got to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for your valuable time here, and look forward to meeting you again in real life. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anytime, man. I'll be retired in about a month. So.
Oh my gosh, a
I'm on
mailman
way.
retiring. Awesome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I didn't know you guys
Yeah,
did
thank
that. That's
you.
cool.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Are you?
yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you retiring, or are you becoming a full-time Bigfooter?
Well, I'm retiring from the post office, and I'll be a big time or a full time whatever I want. And no, I mean, I love Bigfooting, but I've been out of it for a few years. I think since the last time I saw Toby, it's kind of like dwindled. It's been like 5 years or something. Well, God, maybe longer than that. But I just, I don't know. I just kind of lost touch with some people, and I've kind of done my own thing, and I've kind of put the Bigfoot thing on the back burner, but I think it's always there in the back of my mind. I mean, I don't think there's a day goes by that I don't think about Bigfoot. And I don't think, and it's not a day goes by that I don't think about Jesus and God and, salvation and forgiveness and that stuff either. But I've met too many people, and Toby might know who I'm talking about, who made Bigfoot a freaking religion. And I got really turned off by that. And so I turned down some of the crowds that I hung out with because of that. And now that I've cut off ties with some of them, I still miss them, and I'd like to have more a relationship with some of those people again. But you can't make Bigfoot a religion or anything a religion, because that's not a religion. It's not a belief system. It's real and it's there, but you can't let it overtake your mind.
Thank you, Jeff, man. Appreciate it.
Right on.
Pleasure, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on and being open and transparent and telling us everything that we need to know. Appreciate it.
Yeah, way more transparent than I thought.
That's the way we
Thanks.
like it. We're good at it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
This has been a Resonance Production podcast. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email us at bigfootrevealedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you're just discovering the Flash of Beauty universe, you can watch our documentary on most major streaming platforms.